Welcome everybody. My name is Rande Howell, and this is a presentation by the Trader's State of Mind. And the first thing I'd really like to do is to thank fxstreet.com, and particularly Maul Gilson. The thing is these people sought me out, and it became very clear to me that they were very interested in the long-term success of their traders. And for this, I commend them. It's a great organization. So, from here, let's take a look at this thing. I have a couple questions I want to start with, and I want us to explore them, because ultimately we're going to be looking at roadblocks that stop you from being as successful as you can be in trading, and also how do you build the skills that go beyond the roadblocks. The first thing is, here's the first question. How do you build a mind for peak performance trading? Okay, how do you go and build that? Then, how do you overcome fear and replace it with discipline, patience, courage, and impartiality? A very big question. Then, how do you build a mind to take advantage of uncertainty? This is a powerful question because ultimately you have both biology and psychology running against you in the merger between uncertainty, fear, and worry. Now, please ask questions. I think the folks at FX Street are going to be the ones able to see the questions, so I will need communication between my producer and them to be able to field questions. Most likely, almost anything you're going to be asking, I'm going to be covering during the lecture, and after I finish, I'll go back to the ones I haven't. Fair enough? Okay, well, in that case, this is going to very much follow very closely my book, Mindful Trading and Mastering the Emotions in the Inner Game. So with that, this is the process we're going through. First, let's start. What produces a successful trading plan? If you consider that you are part of that trading plan. Fundamentally, where most people start, they start with a platform. Then they start going, well, golly, how do I use all these indicators? How do I do this? And then they start building a methodology. And that methodology is what will give them an edge in the market. Then they get there, and this is generally about 2 to 3 years into the road, and you have the methodology down, you know how to use the platform, they merge together, and suddenly you discover something. You're still not making money. And all of a sudden you start realizing, oh my goodness gracious, what's going on here is somehow uncertainty and fear start getting into my trading, and what I can't do is I can't follow my plan. Well, the reason for this is that it's the psychology of mind that has to be developed in order to be able to do it, okay? And this is what we're going to be looking at. How do you go about doing that? So, let's just say this. What actually produces trading success? Okay? The truth is, the holy grail of trading is not found out there. No matter how important your platform, no matter how important your methodology is, it's not out there. The truth is this. 80% of trading is in your head. Okay? 80% of trading is in your head. It is what drives your methodology. It is what drives your platform. So, the question really becomes, how do you develop a mindset for peak performance trading? First, let's get something very clear. The way I understand, the method I use, the way I teach, is that all thought follows emotional state. Emotion hijacks thinking, okay? Emotions are not optional. The only time that you don't have an emotion is when you're dead, and that's not what we're looking to do. If you grasp that all thinking is emotional state dependent, what you want to do is you want to be managing the emotional state from which your mind comes from. And when people say, leave your emotions at the door when you go trading, you're not going to do that. It's impossible to do that. The truth is, you're looking to develop impartiality, which is an emotional state to trade from. You're looking to develop discipline, which is an emotional state that you trade from. These are developed. They're found within you. They already exist within you. Our job is to disrupt the fear, okay, to get at the more powerful things called discipline and partiality. So let's take a look at this. A lot of people really don't comprehend this. What is an emotion? Most people, it's a feeling. No, it's not. An emotion, from a neuroscience perspective, is any deviation from a standard sensorial pattern that your brain interacts with. Any deviation from a standard sensorial pattern, automatically an emotion's triggered. Now, then we take a look at this thing. Well, what actually composes an emotion? This is powerful. What composes an emotion, the first element is arousal. You know, when you're trying to sit there pulling the trigger and all of a sudden your heart starts beating and all that adrenaline starts getting in your system and you stop and hold your breath and stuff like that and everything seems to crank up, that's arousal. And a lot of the work that I do teaches you how to interrupt that part of the emotional state, because fundamentally, if you allow yourself to get to the point where you're actually your heart's pounding, you've already lost. The emotion has already swept you away. The whole key is to keep it from getting there and to become calm. Okay? The second part, probably really the most important part of an emotion, is the motivation of it. All emotion, motion, okay? An emotion is going to tell you to do something. And there are three fundamental motivations that are going to happen for you. One is attack. That's if you're trading impulsively, and if you're trying to revenge trade and get back your losses, you're attacking. The second, if you're hesitating, you're avoiding. Attack, avoid. That's the biology of the other responses. However, there is another one, and it's called approach. And that, through mindfulness, which we'll be getting to, that is what you learn how to develop. You intentionally learn how to approach uncertainty differently. Meaning, this is powerful. Ultimately, meaning becomes glued, becomes woven into an emotion. And then the emotion, like fear, will have a meaning like inadequate to it. This is how we develop the most fundamental beliefs that we have about ourselves. And this is important, and it has to change to become an effective trader. Feeling. This is the way you subjectively experience the emotion, that flush, that feel of anxiety, that flush, that feel of worry. The thing is feelings are very useful in that they tell you the emotion is there. Okay? But by the time you can tell the emotion is there, it's already done a lot of work. And this is an area where it's an indicator to us. It's not a thing that we work with. And temperament, we're just not going to be dealing with that simply because that's genetics and that's far beyond what we're looking for. So, we have this idea of what an emotion is. Okay? Now, let's see how it's applied to the uncertainty of life, the uncertainty of trading. Understand, life itself is uncertain. There is nothing that can be done about it. Your brain is going to do everything under its power to produce certainty in the face of ambiguity that flows out of uncertainty. To the brain, it sees that as a threat of death, and it's going to do everything it can to produce prediction. Unfortunately, the brain also has evolved to tie both worry and fear to uncertainty. And this is the problem when you get into trading and it's an uncertain thing. Even if you know in your logical thinking brain that probability is on your side, you still get in there and you still get cranked up because the uncertainty of what's going to happen is still there, and it is still wired as worry or fear, and it trips and boom, there you are. You can't follow your trading plan. Now, worry to me is very different from fear. Worry is an emotional state where you find negative attribution toward the future. If you've ever found yourself, this is kind of funny, if you've ever done this, in pulling the trigger or being in the trade, if you find what if, you know exactly what negative attribution is. Fundamentally, your brain is a negative assessment machine. It was designed that way, it evolved that way, and that's inescapable, though you can learn how to manage it, and that's what we're looking for. Fear, on the other hand, all thought is hijacked. If you've ever had a car run you down, if you've ever stepped into a street and the car's bearing down on you, you have experienced fear. All you're going to do at fear, you're going to run, you're going to hide, you're going to freeze, you're going to submit. That's it. So fear really just wipes out thinking, whereas worry has a particular quality of thinking. And that, by the way, we have to learn how to manage if you're going to become effective in trading. Now, how does this all fold up into trading? Okay, understand, uncertainty, unless you are very, very lucky in where you got born and how you developed, has become glued to worry and fear. So what happens is that you're trading and you have this triggering of uncertainty that automatically trips the fear response. And out of that, what you do is the meaning section of the emotion takes on self-limiting beliefs to protect you from the threat. Okay? This becomes the psychological organization of self. This is your what if. This is your what if. What if? And ultimately, out of uncertainty come these self-limiting beliefs. Out of the self-limiting beliefs comes impulse trading, which is attack. It's a historical pattern of trying to take out on the market, beat it into submission, take advantage of it. Or avoid. This is the fear-based trading that so many of folks know about. Okay? And out of it, what you're going to do is you're going to produce, out of fear-based trading, your thinking is going to be contaminated by fear, and it's going to be looking to run, looking to hide, looking to freeze, looking to submit. It's going to avoid. Okay? Or if you learn to emotionally regulate the fear and then decouple the fear and worry from uncertainty and bring a new mindset to it, what you've done is you have begun to practice mindful thinking, which is what we're going to be talking about in just a little while. This is approach motivation, and it's powerful. It is what creates new beliefs. It is what creates the new realities of what you can be. So, from here, let's actually take a look at the impact of emotions on trading. And here's the one thing you need to grasp very clearly, is that fear blocks the development of potential. Until you learn to be able to disrupt and to reconstruct fear, you will always be limited. You will never get to potential as long as the roadblock of fear is in your way. You have to develop the tools and skills to go beyond fear. The key is that most of us, if we were fairly honest with one another, would admit that what we've done, we have avoided our fears for almost our entire life. And some of us have done it very, very well. The problem is the very fears that you have been avoiding for all your life, you don't have to worry about avoiding them in trading. Because what happens is your fears, your psychological demons, are going to stalk you. So, to develop as a trader, fear has to be confronted to change your established pattern of reacting to an uncertain world. You got it? Well, that's good news, because let's actually take a look at what the brain and the mind look like on fear. Some of us is that we've already covered, but this is so powerful. This is what you're up against. This is before we even get to your psychology. Okay? Your brain first is a negative assessment machine. It is going to assume negative intent. For instance, when you watch the news, do you ever find good news? What happens is, what the newscasters know, that we are drawn to negative information, and we're going to look for it, so they give it to us. That's why I don't watch very much news. The second thing, we've already heard this, and it can't be told too many times. Your brain does not naturally distinguish uncertainty from fear. This is something you are going to have to learn how to do and to operate volitionally. Third, your brain organizes you to avoid uncertainty and fear, and it creates this comfort zone, where, everything's kind of cool in there. The problem is the comfort zone limits your potential. It becomes a prison of your comfort zone. The next thing, this is the piece that people really need to grasp, is the brain then forms self-fulfilling patterns that are based on the avoidance of fear and uncertainty. There's your hesitation. There's your, I'm kind of timid, I just don't want to do that. The truth is that depending on the mindset that is brought to uncertainty, that's the probability that's going to happen. Okay? Now, once established, the patterns go on automatic and they begin to dominate your state of mind. And ultimately, you keep looking for what you fear. And in trading, you don't have to look far. Your fear is going to be staring you in the face. So suddenly, what happens? The trader is trading from avoidance or greed rather than from calm impartiality. They are trading not to lose rather than trading to win. Very, very powerful. So, what we've done here, we have gone through and taken a look at what brain does. We have seen what fear does. Now let's take this global fear, and by the way, understand is to your limbic brain, that's your mammalian social brain that's actually doing the trading, not your thinking brain. What happens is it cannot distinguish any fear states. If it feels threat, it has threat to life, fear of death, okay? And it organizes you to avoid that. But when we add psychology to it, it becomes more nuanced. And what I want to do now is let's go over the common roadblocks, the common fears that fear shows up as. The original primal fear shows up more nuanced in the mind. And here we go. Let's take a look at it. Here it is. First of all, fear of uncertainty. That hesitation that you feel, you go, I don't know, if I just had more confirmation, if I had more confirmation, I don't know if I should take this one or not. I could go get some coffee right now. What a great time. Hesitation, procrastination. Then, fear of loss. This is the mother of the big fears in trading. You've got your finger on that mouse. It's a simple trigger. It's only 18 inches away from your brain. And yet, there you are. It's frozen. And you have all sorts of internal dialogue, all sorts of crazy chatter going on in your mind about what if? What if you lose? What if you lose? Fear of loss. Then, often called greed, but actually fear of missing out. Okay? You see this thing, you've got your trading plan, things show up, and you see, oh my God, that's a great trade. I'm going to take it. It's not in your trading plan for the day. It's not in the setups you're looking for, but there it is, and you take it anyway. You have just got into gambling. You have just got into gambling. You're fearful of missing out on opportunity. And it's crazy if you think about it. There's plenty of opportunity out there. It's just that you're keeping it focused so that you can manage risk. Then there's that fear-based urgency to make up for prior losses, otherwise known as revenge trading. It's a mixture of fear, and it's a mixture of impulse, and it's a mixture of anger. You get angry. You blow up, you lose it, and then you get angry, I'm going to get it back. Yeah. It's a very complicated emotional state, and it's one that has to be regulated or it will destroy trading accounts. Then, fear of not being right, perfectionism, making a mistake. Oh my gosh, what if I make a mistake? And to the rational, impartial mind, you know that you're managing risk. You know that you're working with probabilities. You're not working with certainty. And yet there's your brain not wanting to give up uncertainty, even though it's staring management of uncertainty in the face. Fear of uncertainty. Now, there's also the fear of inadequacy, where you're looking for, oh my gosh, I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough. What if, I'll never be good enough, and everybody else is better than me. Why are they all making money and me not? Fear of inadequacy. The fear of self-sabotage, blowing yourself up. How many in here will put days, weeks, maybe months of good trading together, and you begin to go, oh, this is pretty good. And then this thought occurs in the back of your mind is that, well, this is too good to be true. You're going to blow it. And all of a sudden, there you go. You start following that train of thought, and there you are blowing it. Fear of sabotage. Fear of success or failure. And I like to really put the fear of success on light here because it's very common. I work with a couple of people who come from money, okay? And what happens is that they have really nothing to prove. They don't have to trade. Yet what happens is they start trading, what they discover is, oh my God, what if I am successful? What if I really do start actually having, what if I actually start doing this? And they don't. They keep blowing it until they learn how to overcome this fear. And then there's just the fear of growth and change. I don't want to change. I want everything to be the way it's always been. And that's not going to happen in trading. You have no idea what the seashore is going to bring to the shore on a day. In the same way, you don't know what the market's going to give you. You have to be ready to receive. And the thing is, your fear of growing, you're fearful of changing. And this is when you become imprisoned in the box of your comfort zone. Now, if you will, what I would really appreciate, a lot of times I actually do a poll here because I like to see within a group, which is the most powerful fear that's gripping the group at one time. What I would love is for you to just simply put in and tell the FX Street folks what biggest fears actually, which ones drive your trading. And I'd love to be able to find that. But at any rate, nonetheless, this right here, to label the fear, is the first step in being able to conquer the fear. Now, why would you want to conquer the fear? Okay? I'll tell you why. It's the cost of fear-based mindsets. And what happens if you don't? Here's the deal. 90% of traders lose money because they do not know how to conquer their fear. There's a good chance they don't want to even confront their fears. And yet, trading will always force you into finding the courage to confront your fears and to grow. And here's the way this thing works, okay? And what I want you to actually think about is, as I explain this slide, how much money has it cost you, okay, to be controlled by your fear? To have it where you haven't got it under management. The low end of the scale, $10,000. You start easily finding it's $50,000, $100,000, and I've been around people who've lost $2 million, only because they refused, they either did not know or refused to deal with their fears. And as they learn to deal with them, they discover they no longer have to be consumed by fear. They can actually see and act in powerful new ways. But fundamentally, here's the deal. Out of your emotional state comes your thinking, your state of mind, okay? Out of your state of mind comes your perceptual map, the way you perceive, what you see as possible. Out of that perceptual map, that's your actions. That's the action. That's actually pulling the trigger. That's doing all that stuff. Out of your action becomes the reality you're creating. Either the trading account's going down or the trading account's going up, the reality of it. Then there's a feedback loop right back to the emotional state. Okay? This is where emotional regulation needs to occur, is disrupting the reality between reality and the emotional state and managing that emotional state that you bring the right state of mind. You bring a good perceptual map. You take actions that based on discipline and impartiality, not on fear, which creates a very different reality in your trading account, which then impacts your emotional state. So there you go. That's how all this stuff weaves together. But I want you to write down, if nothing for yourself, understand nobody's going to see this. Write down the figure that your fear has cost you. It is powerful. Okay. What we have done now, we have gone over biology. Now, let's go over mindfulness, the mind. Okay? The whole key here, in the way that I would practice and train mindfulness, is the key distinction that a trader needs to grasp is that you and your thoughts are not the same. There is tremendous freedom in beginning to recognize, what do you mean my thoughts and I are not the same? That's exactly what I mean. What you will discover within you, there is an internal dialogue, what some people would call inner chatter. They're just not random thoughts running in your mind. Your self-limiting beliefs are given voice in your thoughts. Learning to be able to monitor your thought allows you to be able to get to the self-limiting belief and change it. This is the big thing. And if you ignore the internal dialogue, pretending it's not there, a good trading plan is absolutely wasted. It can look really eloquently great on paper, but until you have the mind developed to be able to use that plan, it's a wasted instrument. No one escapes the internal dialogue. Who in here, particularly those of you who have trouble pulling the trigger or being in the trade, who in here has not heard the internal dialogue just ripping like crazy inside the self? And imagine learning how to manage it. Imagine that. Now, the next thing is when you learn to observe it, become mindful of it, what happens is that you can learn to manage and expand the internal dialogue. And suddenly you discover that there is a lot more possible than just fear-based or impulse-based trading. There is also calm, impartial, disciplined trading as a mind, as a dialogued mind that can be actually built. Okay? Now, you ultimately have to become the author of the story that's going on inside your head. This is where most people avoid, And this is why most people continue to produce mediocrity. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. And here's where a lot of people actually come to the moment where they just have been avoiding like crazy. And here are the big reasons. The truth is that your fears are based in what I would call core wounds, or these self-limiting beliefs. The first one is a sense of inadequacy. I'll never be good enough. I'll never be smart enough. I can't make mistakes. Oh, mistakes are proof of my inadequacy. That one. A sense of not mattering. You know, I only matter based on what I do, not who I am. And what you'll discover is self-loathing or arrogance. These are the folks who beat themselves up after a trade and stuff like that and tell them how stupid they are. Then a sense of being unworthy. I have to prove myself to have value. And you'll find this particularly in second generation money that are going into trading. They're going to try to create an identity for themselves. And what happens is, this is the thing, is that I'm not worthy. It's very powerful. And a sense of powerlessness. Is that, you know, the truth is nothing I do seems to make a difference. I'm doomed. It's victimhood. These four positions ultimately are the very root and foundation of self-limiting beliefs. These are the psychological demons. These are the ones that have to be confronted, and you have to find a deeper sense of purpose, because fundamentally you have to find value within the self inherently, and you discover your worth, and suddenly your trading is no longer about you, it's about your performance. Your performance is something that you can work with, you can improve. You is a totally different question, okay? Now, what I want you to hear is this fear-based thinking shows up in your mind as thought, okay? And our avoidance of them is what keeps you glued to them. You got it? Okay. Now that we've compiled this theory, let's actually see what it looks like in mind. Okay, we've got this body of understanding that thinking is actually a biological activity. Okay, it's just a bunch of neurons doing what they do. It is the thought that emerges out of this that's so important, and those thoughts are the voices of both your biology and your self-limiting beliefs. And here they are, the ones that cause all the problems. The first is the inner critic. Remember, your brain is a negative assessment machine. There's a judge floating around in your head. It's going to criticize, and it's going to always say you're not good enough. Or it will tempt you into thinking you can do things. Oh, you don't need confirmation. That looks like a great trade. Just go take it. And you blow yourself up. The inner critic. There's also an adaptation to that inner critic. In my work, I actually call this the wounded child. And it takes on various roles, various personas. And here's the one. The doubter. Oh, I never win. Oh, it's for everybody else but not for me. And by the way, while I'm doing this, write down which ones relate to you. Because this is powerful. You can start saying, these are not my thoughts. These are my self-limiting beliefs living within me that are given voice in my thoughts. They do not have to be me. This is only one organization of the self that's potential. There are other organizations of self that can be built, can be developed, that trade phenomenally differently. The second one is Chicken Little. That's all that negative appraisal stuff that your negative assessment machine of a brain is going to do. It's going to look out there, even if it's blue sky, you're already thinking of rain. The gambler. That's the one who says, I've hit my profit target, I want more, more, more. And you don't take reasonable profits, you just keep lusting for more. The perfectionist. This is the one that has to win every time, or they're not good enough. I have to do all that. I have to do that. I can never be wrong. Oh my gosh, what if I'm wrong? The entitled one. I deserve to win. You know, I'm going to go in there. I'm going to prove it to everybody. The con. This is when you're lying to yourself. Many people lie to themselves a lot. And in trading, you can continue lying until your trading account shows different. Fraud. That's pretending to look good to other people, but in fact believing that if they really knew you, that you knew, they would know that you really don't measure up. The orphan. This is your fear. Okay? It's the fear of missing out. It's the fear of moving forward. It's the fear of being paralyzed. It's actually your limbic brain is what it is. saboteur. This is when you just keep blowing things up. Somehow, you just keep doing that. You just don't get it. The alpha, and this is one of the more dangerous ones, particularly with American males, is they come out of corporate world and they have this real warrior Fido complex, and then they're used to dominating the world and having their will done, and they get into trading, and you can't do that with trading. You know, what happens is in trading, you are going to see what the market is going to give you, and you're going to be patient to be able to receive it. If you go after it and think you're going to win, it's a very dangerous thing. This is the dance that goes on in the internal dialogue. And what I ask you to do is imagine pulling the trigger and listening to the internal chatter in your mind. And what you can do, you can slow it down. You can slow it down. You can slow it down until you can discern the inner critic, and you can discern this adapted voice, and you can begin to see what cripples your thinking. It's very powerful. It's one of the best things that you can get out of this presentation. This right here is to understand the historical dialogue going on within you. And what let's do for a moment, let's look at it this way. Let's build a parallel between biology of brain and psychology of mind. The biology of fear, that's your orphan. Okay? That's the fear that you experience. The brain is a negative assessment machine. There's your inner critic. The adaptation of fear response to environmental stressors, this is your negative appraisal versus the management of uncertainty. And this is where you just simply have to develop the mind. So with that, let's take a new way of looking at the mind. Instead of just some undifferentiated thought-producing glob sitting between your shoulders and in your head, let's take a look at the mind as a committee meeting, like a board of directors, that's actually directing the course that a company is taking into the future. And what happens is, you've been asleep at the wheel, and it's absolutely out of control. What you will discover is who controls your trading committee. If you remain mindless, you continue to trade from self-limiting beliefs. However, understand this. The internal dialogue controls the story you're creating about trading. Being mindless to it just simply allows it to perpetuate itself into the future. And the truth is, mindlessness of these voices within your committee of the mind just simply leads to fear-based or impulse-based trading. You're not in control of your own committee, okay? Disrupting this grip of fear, this is what opens you to the potential living within you. And you have the power to reinvent the conversations occurring in your mind. And this brings us to the next stage. This is actually when we've taken a look at this thing. We've flowed through this from biology, we've added mind, and we find out just, oh my gosh, we need to become a steward of our mind rather than just letting it go through and pretending I can externally change things. No, you have to change the belief structure. Here we develop the mind to become a successful trader. You actually have to start finding the power that lives within you. Because ultimately, what you're going to discover in the very same way that you have fear living within you, you will also discover that you have discipline within you, that you have impartiality within you, that you have courage within you, that you have patience within you. It's part of your human genome. You just haven't been aware of it. You have to learn how to develop it. So, let's actually take a look at what the stages of long-term change actually are. The first thing, and this is correlated what we have been doing, okay? The first thing is you have to produce emotional regulation so the chemistry of the brain and of emotion does not take over your thinking, okay? It's that simple. Because out of that, fear will always compromise performance, always. And you have to regulate that so it doesn't sweep you away. The second thing you do is you have to develop mindfulness. Mindfulness as a meditation practice is different than other meditation practices. This is more like the type of meditation that you would learn in Zen, okay? where you become observer to thought and you step back out of thought and you begin to observe you and your thought is different and you start deconstructing the attachment to what you thought you were. That's mindfulness. Out of mindfulness, you disrupt the internal dialogue. You begin to see this inner critic and see this adapted self within you. It's just simply the way your brain adapted you to the circumstances that you experienced in the formative period of your life. It's not you. It's one particular organization of the self that has gone on pattern, and you're going to have to commit some emotional labor to shift it so that it functions on a higher level. And that higher level takes you to stage 4, where you actually develop the peak performance elements of the self. And here, we're going to talk a little bit about finding the warrior within you, finding the ruler within you. Because the thing is, this is where it's at. This is how you change the internal dialogue. And that leads you to stage 5, where you actually start reorganizing the trading mind. You, instead of running away from the inner struggle that goes within all of us, what you do is you approach it with a new mindset. That's how you produce change. This is the 5 stages of long-term change. Okay. So, how does this all fit together? Well, if you want to change core material, self-limiting beliefs, into empowering beliefs, what you're going to discover that most psychological systems change the surface material. Okay, that would be like an LP, general meditation, biofeedback, hypnosis. And I use a lot of these things in my own practice, but I recognize this is just surface material. You have to get to the deeper self-limiting belief. You're just not going to have a magic wand. You're going to have to get to the psychological demon. The core material that triggers our primitive patterns of fear must be developed. You have to be able to find it to be able to reorganize the self. And the truth is, the key in all this, in terms of changing and shifting and improving the beliefs about self, is the emotional state that comes from compassion. Compassion as an emotional state is what changes you. It is what reorganizes you to, you can accept your inherent worth as a human being. Absolutely important. And it becomes internal validation of self rather than external validation of self. Then, regulating your fear and you redirect strength, this is what changes the mindset that trades. And the truth is this is particularly with the compassion versus beating yourself up. Who in here has become a better trader because they beat themselves up when they make mistakes? Just raise your hands. I've never had a trader yet raise their hand. Beating yourself up just simply makes the fear go deeper. Compassion opens up and changes the very core of meaning you have about yourself, and is what allows you to reconstruct the self. So, let's take a look at this. Fundamentally, the war has always been inside the self, not outside, so you have to prepare yourself. In the same way that compassion is necessary, a warrior's attitude that brings both courage and discipline is absolutely important. And it's an inherent part of the self. Anybody can go back and find at least one time when they were backed in a corner that they found the courage to face fear. This is the very part of the self, the very courage that allows you to be disciplined in the face of internal conflict or external conflict. If you have a memory of it, it can be brought and it can become habit. It can become you. You have to have the courage to set boundaries with yourself. You have to have the motivation to confront the critical nature of our negative assessments from a position of strength. And you have to have the discipline to champion our adapted self from the attacks of the inner critic. And that's just the way it is. So, putting this all together, what does it really look like? What we do is we move from mindlessness to mindfulness. My hope is that you have a lot more information that you're looking at that allows you to think very differently about your trading, even about yourself, than you did 50 minutes ago. In here, what you learn is that you really have to develop emotional regulation of both fear and impulse. You do not get to the mind until you can regulate the fear and impulse. I have a system that is based on breathing, based on relaxation, that allows you to disrupt the arousal component, okay? So that you really disrupt it, it doesn't sweep you away, and you can bring your heroic parts of the self up rather than your fearful self part. Because the deal is this, is locating the internal dialogue can't be done in fear. You have to have a pretty calm state of mind. And it is that internal dialogue that constricts the possibility and keeps you stuck in self-limiting belief. Then developing this compassionate warrior, and you will know that part of yourself is alive and kicking when you feel calm, impartial authority. This is the antidote to fear. This is the mindset that you bring to the uncertainty of the market. And when you're in calm, impartial authority, what happens is your ability to trade in probabilities shows up. That's the biggie. When in fear, you don't trade in probabilities. You are trying to avoid risk. Now, what it also leads to is being able to manage the internal conflict while trading. Imagine being able to handle the conflict of pulling the trigger, of being in the trade, of keeping yourself calm, and instead of having a fearful part of yourself taking over and doing your trading, that you would actually have this compassionate warrior part of yourself doing your trading. Which do you prefer? Which do you prefer? Which do you think is going to have long-term benefit to you? The continuation of the fear-based trading or the embracing of a compassionate warrior within yourself that takes over mind, that does your trading for you? So fundamentally, what happens is you move into a calm, impartial, disciplined state of mind. This is how the process works. So, let's take a look at this. Here's your choices, okay? You can continue using the same thing, the same old, and what you can do is you can continue focusing on the Holy Grail out there. Finding another tweak, finding another thing, resizing this and that and the other, and never realizing that it's your mind that has to be developed. And you can continue in impulsive, fear-based mindsets. You can move into mindless trading and remain blind to the internal dialogue, even though it's robbing you blind. And you stay unaware of your potential. The inner critic becomes the source of your beliefs. That's the one with the whip. And it's telling you you're not good enough, you're never going to make it, you got to have more, you can't lose, that one. And the adapted voice is always reacting from fear impulse to that judgment. This is a loser's state of mind. Or, as you start really practicing and realizing, I can now develop the tools to change my self-limiting beliefs into empowering beliefs. Suddenly, you're going down a different route. You're moving from emotionally regulated, calm, focused mindset that leads to mindful trading, where you are in command of the internal dialogue. And what you'll discover is you trade from discipline. Remember, discipline lives within you in the same way that fear or criticism lives within you. The key is, can you regulate the fear so that you can get to the discipline, develop it. You develop it, okay? You develop it so that it is front and center of your trading program. And out of that discipline, what you discover is the impartiality, or what in Jungian archetypes is called sage. You discover the courage. In Jungian work, that's called warrior. You find your passion. You have to absolutely find your love, okay? And you also find the patience. Based on what is known as caregiver, that's where your compassion comes from, and that's how you change the self-limiting belief. So what you end up with trading actually as a personal development program that you actually get to measure your level of performance and success by your trading account. Now, friends, this is the presentation. I hope you've learned a few things. Okay, I hope you have a much better understanding of brain, emotion, and mind and how it applies to trading. I really do. I hope that you now have been able to name your fear. Instead of just having some global fear, you know exactly what the fear is. I hope not only do you know the fear, I hope you know the voice of that fear. Now, my encouragement is on my website. There's lots of free stuff. There's lots of articles. There's also a trader questionnaire that is very powerful. It will really point out the kind of fear you have or the impulse you have. It's all free. There's other things there, from guided meditation to compassionate warrior workshops into my big program. And the thing is if you're really looking at change, the big program, the Ignite programming, is a powerful opportunity. And you can go to the website and check. But I'll tell you something. What I also really encourage you to do, I hope you continually check in for new webinars and new educational opportunities by fxstreet.com, because they're really good folks. Okay? They have great stuff in their newsletters. And I'm not saying this because they run articles of mine and stuff like that. But the thing is, they're good people. They have concern about your long-term interests, not just your short-term interests. And what I'll also say is, if you're really, truly serious about changing your trading, I would encourage you to schedule a free consult with me. It's pretty easy. You go to my website. It's there on the slide. You hit Contact Us. You go to the menu, and you make a free request. And what happens, it will be an in-depth talk about your trading and the mindset you've brought to it. Now, I'm not sure how I'm going to entertain questions, because we did. So if I have not done that, please, any questions you have, I'll be happy to answer at this time. We have about 5 minutes. And there are a lot of people saying, I've really enjoyed it. It was really great. Thanks. Okay. Great presentation. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I get your power. Oh, I see the need for my fear to change. Yes. What is the meaning of the fire? What happens, I believe that we have potential living within us at all times. And I believe that as we begin to really search, we begin to find our inner fire, our fire in our belly. And that is my attempt to be able to show that living within all of us is something much greater than what we currently have. And that's what it means. At least that's that's what I meant for it to mean. Any more questions? There's a person saying, great session. I truly have been, I feel joy. I appreciate the opportunity. Okay, here we go. What exercises can we do to create a calm during the, there are two things. One, I would encourage you to go to my website, and there's a couple guided meditations, both on breathing and on observation. They're pretty inexpensive. They're all under $20 and stuff like that. Or you can go to Zen Buddhism, and you can study Zen meditation, and you can study breathing. Both are acceptable. And what I do is I actually train the person to produce a calmness, but then I use what is known as stress inoculation, where I train a person as the arousal of an emotion actually starts building. I actually train a conditioned response for them to automatically start breathing, to automatically start producing calmness. Shall we enlarge our comfort zone even if we are already consistent? Well, it depends on if you're happy with where you're at, you don't have to change. But the thing is, I have found very few people that do not want to grow beyond where they are. Here's another question. Is visualization good? Absolutely. The thing, I use a lot of visualization in my work, but what happens is I don't use positive affirmations and stuff like that, because if you're using positive affirmations and you're not getting at the psychological demons at you, what you do is you're saying these kind of puffy little things, and there is a voice deeper still in the subconscious that says, oh yeah, well, we'll see about that, and you keep blowing it up. The brain operates on a couple different ways. Some people are visual thinkers, other people are auditory thinkers, other people are kinesthetic thinkers. And I like to hone it in to which way you think. So visualization's great. Other people have to feel it. Okay, how long, in your experience, do you think a person can make this change from a mindlessness? In the course that I do, which is about 3 months, I'm expecting you to do it in 3 months. I'm expecting you to do it with my personal coaching. It's 10 sessions with what I call the 10-pound book. It's lots and lots of stuff, but I see that consistently throughout. But you have to be motivated. It's not going to happen because you want it to be. How do you keep calm with money loss? What you do is you deconstruct the relationship with uncertainty and fear. That's the whole trick. If you have a system, if you have a methodology that gives you an edge in probability in the markets, the whole key is to deconstruct, and that's part of it is biomechanical with the breathing and relaxation and safe place and all that stuff. And also part of it is actually calming the fear of what I would call the orphan and having a much more powerful part of the self show up. You are going to lose in trading. The thing is you are building an edge so the probability is on your side. Okay? Okay. How much will 10 sessions... Okay, now that's a whole program. What happens is if you go to my website, you'll discover that this Towntown package is a 154-page textbook with a lot of written exercises, 20-plus CDs that include an audio book, a guided meditations for all these particular skill sets that we're talking about, and a DVD. That comes with 10 consults with me and is right under $3,000, and it's done over a 3-month period and can be broken down into 3 payments. Let's see. Would it be interesting to talk about traders' perception of time and high volatility market? Time is like, yeah, absolutely. Let's see. Name of Randy's book. Yeah, Mindful Trading, Mastering Your Emotions and the Inner Game. Okay. Is there any other questions here? Okay, that's it. And my time's about up. So my friends, I wish you good trading. Wait. While in low volatile market conditions, time is compressed, time goes slower. Well, your perception of time changes. And a lot of people, unless you produce the patience, unless you actually calm the system down, you can easily get into things that you don't need to get into. That actually brings up one thing that's important. In peak performance and arousal, if you're playing American football or basketball, what you're looking to do is you're looking to have a highly aroused emotional state where, man, the chemistry is just flying in there because it is the performance is very physical. If, however, you took that very peak performance strategy into either trading or chess, you would lose. Because chess and trading are very cognitive rather than biological, you have to have low arousal states to be able to be in impartiality, to be able to get to that logical, impartial state of mind. So that's also, in compression of time, what you're doing is you are breathing, you are calming yourself down, you are finding the parts of the self that don't have to compress time, and you get a different way of timing. Okay, my friends, time is up. Thanks from the Philippines. That's great. Time is up. I thank you, all of you, for coming. I had a great time, and may you trade well.